hello everyone. Sorry we're a couple minutes late here. We had some technical difficulties on our side, the same old story that you've all undoubtedly heard and experienced in your own workplaces. But we are here now. Thank you so much for taking the time this afternoon to join CX 2.0, the AI Advantage. I'm Ali. I'm VP of Marketing here at Regal. And really, Regal is the new standard in outbound contact centers. So for us, figuring out new ways for brands to connect with their consumers via phone and voice and SMS is critical for us. And AI, we think, is a big part of the future of outbound calling and of contact centers. So we're excited to chat today. We also have Marc here from Balto Software. Thanks for joining, Marc. And our CEO at Regal, Alex Levin, is here as well. So really excited to get started. The word on everybody's lips is AI, right? So in every SAD conference room across the country, there is an executive telling his team to get more done with less using AI. I'm sure we've all on the call heard it. Alex has said it to me before. So from our perspective, there's a lot of ways where AI can superpower customer experience. And we'd love to chat a little bit more about those with you today. So I guess first, let's just kick things off. Marc, Alex, both of you, founded and lead companies that are huge within the realm of CX and also are heavily leveraging AI in your product efforts. Would love to hear just your initial take on sort of how you think AI and CCaaS and CX intersect and what sort of trends you're seeing nowadays. Alex, we'll start with you.
Sure. So, I think the promise of AI has always been particularly interesting for contact centers. The idea has always been, could you have a very high-end customer experience, with this all-knowing, fully emotional, fully conversational AI at a much lower cost than a human. So sometimes the way I think about it is the things that a small business owner does to, make customers love him, are really impressive and very expensive. Could you somehow have that same small business owner that knows everything about you and does things for you to love them, but at a much lower cost? And, contact center has about 16 million seats. And so there's just huge opportunity in this particular industry for AI to play that role. It has not lived up to its promise to date, I would say, for contact centers. It's really disappointed people. But in the last 6 months, I think there have been real leaps forward that have gotten at least us very excited about the potential of using AI to really reach that promise. And I'd say our guiding North Star now is, 5 years from now, maybe if you're less aggressive, 10 years from now, 90% of interactions in a contact center, in our opinion, will be automated. And that doesn't mean there will be no humans in a contact center. It just means that the front line will really be an AI agent instead of a human agent.
Yeah, Marc, tell us a little bit about your perspective at Balto and sort of how you guys are thinking about AI.
Yeah, I think one thing that Alex said that I think is really important to kind of think about and dig in on is that AI has not lived up to its promise. And I think a big piece of that is because of all the flood of attention and investment. When you have a bunch of people sprinting to implement a new technology, you're going to have a lot of players and a lot of ideas that are just messy, that are just throwing stuff together and saying, okay, if we AI this or AI that, can we create value for customers? Let's just try it. And then let's hand this to our marketing department 6 weeks before it's even built and have them tell everyone that we've done it. And let's find one agent in one customer who we made go 10% faster and say that's the new norm. So that's the kind of stuff that's just happening in the space. And it's unfortunate because Alex was talking about the promise of AI, and the promise of AI is real, and the actual what you can achieve with it today is real. It just gets flooded, by all of the attention, investment, and all the players who are just trying to slap something together.
Yeah, I think we've seen that as well, and there's a couple of universal truths that exist within our space. One is that consumers now, especially for what we call high consideration purchases, things that cost a lot of money, make a big impact to your life, expect personalization, expect greater engagement from the companies they do business with. On the flip side, providing those personalized experiences at scale to all your customers is unfortunately not feasible using humans for most businesses. And so that's sort of where I think AI comes in within the space. So, Alex, when you're thinking about boosting efficiency with AI, how might AI make an a contact center team or a sales team more efficient, and like share some success stories that you've heard of in your time.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of different approaches to this. I think for years, you had companies like I'll pick on ASAP, where ASAPP, where they saw their business as providing suggestions of what to say next. Or you had obviously companies like Balto that went a little bit further and allowed sort of really to see what a script could be, and that was one sort of direction. Or you had the gongs in the world saying, oh, we'll analyze what you said and pull out things. And that was sort of the level that people started with. I think it's starting to become real that instead of that, you could actually have an AI agent doing the physical job instead of a human. Not in every use case, but in some of the simpler ones, certainly on text for sure. And even on voice, we're starting to see use cases on voice where an AI agent can do it, which is getting very exciting that you'll actually be able to start thinking about making that transition, and like how you're going to have both human agents and AI agents like coexisting in a contact center. And like, what is the operating model? Like, you still need scripts, you still need to know about customers, you still need training, you still need QA, right? You still need to figure out like when you're going to talk to the customer and when you're going to deflect them and when you're going to call outbound. Like, a lot of that still exists, but actually it'll just be an AI agent. I have this sort of quip that I've been making that the people best suited, most ready for AI agents are contact center managers, because they've done this for years, right? AI is not software. It's not software in the same sense. You don't just like write some code, test it once, push it to production and say, peace, right? Like, an AI agent is a generative living thing that you have to train and coach and update and fire to some extent, and then get them to do something different. And so people who are used to contact centers actually, I think, will have a big leg up in this in this new world where you're gonna have to manage all these new forms of AI.
Yeah, I think, Marc, one of the big topics that's sort of on everybody's mind is this idea of virtual agents. From your perspective, if someone were to say that like introducing a virtual agent into a contact center environment was just too high risk, because as both of you have alluded to, for a long time, AI has not been at the standard where you can use it in a meaningful way like this. What would you say to someone who's like a skeptic?
Yeah. The first thing I might say is look at the headlines we saw from the White House. What was it, yesterday, maybe 2 days ago, about how there's a new initiative. It's called the, I think, Time is Money initiative. And basically what it says is customer service organizations need to stop messing around with their customers, sending them through doom loops where they can't actually get to a person because the AI keeps trying to handle them and keeps trying to handle them and keeps trying to deflect them. So, the first thing I would say is clearly there is a sentiment that the experience is not there yet. And that sentiment could be like realistic or not realistic, but in the broader scheme of how consumers feel and, what the government, and different politicians say is going to be a really strong talking point. Like, there is a sentiment that's like, don't watch out with these virtual agents. Like, don't go crazy on these virtual agents. And that's just like, there's something there. I think that's part of like this bigger battle that's being set up right now in the contact center space. And on one side of the battle is automated agents, and that's, virtual voice agents and also, chatbots. You have automated agents on one side of the battle, and then you have like super agents, which are, human agents that are AI augmented in some way, shape, or form on the other side of the battle. And I think that we're going to see really substantial investments and progress in both of those. I think that as virtual agents become more and more capable, like a lot of use cases for people won't be necessary anymore. But that being said, we have to forget that the super agents are going to get way more valuable too. And there's all this context in the background, all this emotion of consumers not wanting to feel like they're getting screwed over by businesses, not wanting to feel like AI is taking over, not wanting to, and then politicians wanting to stand up for the little guy and make sure that, AI is not, coming too far into our lives. So there's a whole backdrop behind these innovations in the contact center. So even if the technology were at 100%, there's still a lot of, what I'll call social acceptance that needs to happen, from regulation and people and how we are viewing AI in society in order for this to be like the main way people reach out to contact centers. It's going to take some time.
I'll add a distinction. Instead of a dichotomy, call it a trichotomy. Like I look at what I call deterministic bots, which was like the chat bots and the like IVRs you dealt with where you were yelling at them going, representative, representative, because like they wouldn't do anything, the death loop. There's a human, which, yeah, to your point, can be enhanced by AI. And then there are these generative AI agents, which are, may not be as good as a human today, but like the intrinsic things that AI offers that a human will never be able to offer are 24/7 availability and infinite knowledge. They're omnipotent. Everything you've ever done. Oh, I see you talked to, this person 4 years ago at our, dealership. Like a human being, even if that's in the customer record, will never be able to instantly, constantly, always know that. So I think even if it's not living up to the promise today, I do think like no matter what, there will always be an advantage to these AI agents. When I think about the examples of what's come first and where I've been impressed by it, like we have customers now live with our AI agents, and again, simple use cases. And I heard one yesterday where it was an educational institution that was trying to get somebody to sign up for a new course. And the customer had a very strong accent and was like doing two things at once and kind of not talking to, and a human agent, one, I don't even know if they could have understood, and two, would have lost their temper and would have said, okay, I'm either hanging up on you or like, come on, like pay attention to me. The AI agent, one, understood everything, which was amazing. And two, just like never lost her cool and goes, hey, like, I know you've been like doing something else. Like, can I help you? And it was just shocking to see actually these cases where even now, like the AI agents perform better than human agents. So again, I don't think that like jobs will be destroyed in an absolute sense. I just think they'll shift from agents doing what are relatively low skilled jobs to agents, to your point, using AI and doing much higher skilled jobs. Like when I used to run a big contact center, my MO was always, hey, how do we automate as much as possible the simple interactions? And in those days, it wasn't with AI agents, but now with AI agents, so that in the really bad situations where we really mess it up, we can go way over the top and do crazy good things for customers. So I think AI agents play into that, where you're going to keep on automating the things that you can make customers happy with the AI agent instead of like self-serve or some bot. And then on the high end, yeah, you're going to have customers where you mess up the experience or mess up the product, and you can go way above and beyond for them with humans.
Yep. Alex, I want to dig in on that for 1 second. I'm going to challenge two things and kind of agree with you on one part. You were saying, well, one of the downsides with humans is you can't have 24/7 availability. Another downside with human is you can't have all the knowledge at your fingertips. And what's interesting is, if you're really truly investing in both sides of this, you're investing in the automated agent and you're investing in the super agent, both of those are solved problems. 24/7 availability, outsourcing, and nearshoring, offshoring have solved that for decades. Talking about having the right answers at your fingertips. The AI can obviously, is autonomously generate the right answer and give it to the consumer via chatbot, but it can also generate right answers and do knowledge lookups and give it to agents and say, hey, we solved your answers. So there will absolutely be progress in both of these dimensions. I agree with you that we're going to see, and this is, people have been talking about this for a while, the need for humans shifting toward more complex sort of interactions. And I might refine that a little bit and say, well, let's just assume for a minute, let's just take the assumption that in the next 2 years, maybe 3 years, that an AI bot will be as capable as a human agent, that it'll be able to do the same sort of problem solving. It'll know when to escalate. It'll be able to pull up your resources. It'll be able to work across your systems. Let's just assume for a minute that it'll be as capable as a human agent. Then the only times that we're going to want and have human agents is when we actually want a human. When there's something about talking to another human being, a living person, that you want to hear you out, right? You have a case, you have something that you've had a situation, and make sure a human hears you out. I don't want you to run it through your algorithm, tell me whether I qualify for a refund. I want you to hear me out as the customer, or even a sales interaction where you're like, hey, which color do you think I should go with? Should I go with this color or this color? And the AI being like, I've analyzed the most popular color and determined that this is perfect for you. I don't
Yeah,
know
it's
if
fine.
that's
People
really
still
what
go
you
to a
want.
small bookstore and they like that the small bookstore
Exactly.
puts out the 5 books that the books, employees like, versus
Yep.
going to Amazon saying, this is the one that like your DNA tells us you should be reading.
Yeah.
Spot on. So I think that that's
Yeah.
actually going to be, and actually that's honestly a perfect, little bit of scary, but perfect analogy of human agents will be the small bookstore and AI agents will be the Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think they have my DNA yet, but they did buy One Medical. So like I am scared that the Amazon will get my DNA.
For anybody new who just hopped on, I saw we had a bunch of attendees just join. I'm here talking all about AI and CX with Alex from Regal and Marc from Balto. Remember, you can always put questions in our chat in the Q&A function at the bottom of your Zoom screen. We will get to them during the Q&A portion towards the end of today. But I wanted to zoom out for a second. So for a lot of people, and even potentially people on the call today, like their main interaction with AI thus far has been it doing things for you, right? Like, hey, proofread my paper, write a statement for me, like
Very
requesting a
generous that you said proofread my paper, not write my paper, because I think the latter is happening.
you never know, right? And then, create an image, of me on a hot air balloon with a pink sky, right? Like this is what people are used to engaging with AI in. But the other piece of it that both of you have talked about is the massive data set that AI can pull from. And a lot of what we're hearing in the CCAS space is around like sort of predictive insights. So would love to get both of your take on sort of like how AI can work in a predictive way and how it can help predict either customer behaviors, help predict things that a human just can't see coming. Because I think
Yeah.
that's like a big benefit that we're hoping AI will help drive.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you like two whatever hot takes, so to speak. One is people often use AI when they mean machine learning. So a lot of what you're sort of talking about can actually be solved with machine learning better than it can be solved with AI. Like the idea of looking at big amounts of data and then making a prediction is not necessarily something AI is great at. It's something that machine learning is great at, and people just misuse the word and call it AI. So let's just ignore the fact they're misusing the word for a second. Like, this has been going on for a long time. I had dinner the other day with a friend who used to work for a company that worked for the big retailers, where they were doing this stuff or figuring out based on what you bought, like, were you pregnant or not? Where did you live? Like, what would you buy? Like, we've been incredibly good at this for a long time. And I just think like the problem in contact centers is not whether we have the capability to do it, it's that contact centers have been so focused on efficiency automation and telephony and quality of call, they haven't focused at all on getting customer data. Now that's starting to change, and they're starting to realize that they need, like marketing needs customer data, the contact center needs customer data to be able to make good decisions. So Paul, that's one piece I think of it. The other piece is you know, as these sort of like AI technologies have improved, and this was sort of asked a bit in the question, I think there's the impression that's been given to people that you need to train these models. And there's lots of training that needs to happen. You need to spend hundreds of $1,000s a month on training. And over the last 10 years, that may have been true. What we're seeing actually now is that you don't need to train these models for 90% of the use cases. Like they're perfectly fine. What you need to, and actually, we intentionally go after use cases where you don't even need a knowledge base. Because once you need a knowledge base, it slows down the response time of the model significantly because it has to go check all these things. And in text responses, that may be fine, like if it's a chat AI. But in a voice use case, if you're using a knowledge base and it's waiting 2 seconds to go check it before it answers, that's not going to work. So we look for use cases where, one, there's no knowledge base. Two, we know we don't need to train the model. What we are doing is what's called prompt stuffing. Effectively, you're giving them the model as much information about how to handle the call, in what order, in what questions, what's happening next, and it can handle that in a way that's quite quick. And so, like, even with the telephony, our AI agent on voice can now respond in sub 500 milliseconds on voice, which sounds human. So there's not that 1 second lag, which sounds kind of not human. And so this sort of idea that you need to train the model to have it work is a fallacy in many of the use cases we should be starting with. We should be starting with, again, finding use cases that don't require knowledge base, don't require training, where the default agent with prompt stuffing can do very well, and start there. Eventually, yes, will there be more complicated use cases? Sure, but just don't start with them.
Yeah. Mark, what about on your side? When you think about like the predictive power of AI, how do you see that impacting sort of either Balto's product offering or just the general ecosystem moving forward?
Yeah, I got a million thoughts on this. And then we got an awesome question from Jeff in the chat about training data. I'd like to address as well. So on the predictive side, like step one is you need to be able to effectively execute on a day-to-day basis before you've earned the right to predict anything. So imagine that you had a stockbroker, financial analyst, and they loved making stock picks. And imagine day to day, their performance is abysmal. They're just losing money. They're trading the market, losing money, trading the market. And they say, I have a prediction of what the next 5 years are going to look like. You're like, I don't believe in that guy. I don't think that they're going to be able to make a reasonable prediction. So step one is these AI models need to effectively capture what is happening in reality right now. They need to effectively capture, was this QA criteria hit or missed? And provide your explanation why, and provide how many points, it should be hit for that. Did this particular complaint come up in the call? Explain. So, getting those accurate is step one. Actually then being able to go ahead and say, now predict something that hasn't happened yet. I'm excited for that to be the case. That will be a step in the future. It's interesting because Balto has actually run some cool experiments on that internally. And what we found is it's actually very easy to predict about the top 5% of cases with call it 80% accuracy. So if someone says, is this customer likely to give a complaint? The top 5% of most egregious, calls, you're actually pretty accurate being able to say that's going to turn into a complaint. But then when you actually get to the middle, very, very challenging. And one of the reasons is people are challenging. And if you think about you go on one of these online retailers and it predicts your buying behavior. Well, it's not predicting it perfectly to the T. It's showing you 30 options and then you self-select. So it's saying it has 30 guesses. Maybe you want a book. Maybe you're having a kid and you want this thing. And then you think about all the stuff you scroll through until you go, oh, wow, it knows me. But 29 times it got it wrong. So I think prediction will be a thing, but I think honestly, the contact center space and AI and customer service needs to stay focused on getting the interactions that we have right now really, really correct, contextually accurate, not just business, logic or looking for words or phrases, really nailing that contextual accuracy.
Thanks, Mark. So everybody, please feel free to ask additional questions on anything that you hear for Alex or for Mark. I have one thing that I want to chat about, and then we will dive into Q&A. So I think you guys talked about the small bookstore versus Amazon example. There's countless examples of this. People love going to their neighborhood bar where everybody knows their name, right? People love, engaging with the businesses that they've been going to for years, having a usual at their favorite restaurant. All of this is a desire for sort of engagement, personalization, authenticity. And I think that there is this feeling that AI will diminish this and minimize this, and everybody will get kind of the same experience. But I know our perspective here at Regal is that you can actually create a more personalized and more dynamic experience using AI. I just think that's hard for people to wrap their heads around. So would love to hear from both of you on sort of how we think AI can actually create a more personalized and meaningful interaction in some cases when people think of robots as sort of being one size fits all.
Yeah. I mean, you and I were talking, Ali, the other day about how to find metaphors for this stuff. And I was struggling because most of the metaphors go something like this. And it's oh, well, contact centers with humans are like McDonald's. It's, sure, either everywhere and it's pretty easy to interact with, but it's kind of, they treat everybody the same and it's lowest common denominator, right? And hey, AI is going to be like a chef. And then people intrinsically go, well, chef. But one, a chef feels high end. Does AI feel high end or not? Two, it's really expensive. Is AI really expensive? So I think it's really hard to find good metaphors in normal life because I do believe AI will be like a chef, and I think it will feel human and special, and it will be at a much lower cost. The only place where that's happened is in technology, right? So think of Netflix versus clicking through the TV, right? So you know, if you like think about Netflix, the reason they were so successful is they were able to use technology to massively reduce the cost of distributing this. And instead of having a linear channel that just showed you random stuff, what you were going to see was always going to be the thing that was right for you. And instead of charging you effectively with ads, like, $100 a month, they're now charging you $15 a month. So AI is a special thing where I truly believe it will enable this feeling of personalization and emotion at a much lower cost. And there's very few examples in life, so it's hard for us to understand it because it's not the normal way. The normal way is, oh, you want something that's special and personalized, that's more expensive.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. Mark, how are you thinking about sort of like AI creating more personalization, making interactions more meaningful than even a human could do at scale?
In the beginning, it's going to totally suck, and then it's going to get much better. I'll start on the better side. It's really interesting. OpenAI released this may have been their earnings report. I'm trying to remember where it was, but the other day they're talking about risks to their business, and one of the risks they're talking about is that their new voice interface 4.0, that it is in some cases so lifelike that they're worried that people will develop unhealthy relationships talking to it and having a back and forth with it. So, that's obviously a risk, but it's also highlighting that, wow, AI might really be able to crush personalization at some point. So I do think the future there is bright. If you think about personalization today, think about as, companies have gotten better at, I'm going to do another air quotes, personalization, how it has just been like inauthentic spam cannons. It's like, I noticed fact 1 and fact 2, and you seem to enjoy fact 3, and then pitch. And it's like, so I think that personalization usually starts out with like pulling bits of information about you in some sort of uncanny way that doesn't really feel authentic and kind of feels like an invasion of your privacy, and integrating it into some generic message that gets blasted all over the internet. That's like how it starts. And then hopefully it'll get refined. And I'll give you guys kind of one small story on that. Someone was hitting me up with a prospecting email, and it was totally automated. And it crawled. I have like a personal website, and on the website, I have art and I write poetry. And it crawled the website, picked out a piece of my poem, and put it there at the start of the email. But it just so happens the poem was about like burning the world down. And so it was like burning the world down, burn, burn. Hi, great to meet you. I was like, this is so, you totally missed like what you were supposed to do here. So, and it highlighted how inauthentic this interaction is. So I think in the beginning, personalization is going to be a mess. The opportunity is big. It will get better and better and better, but beware for a kind of a little bit of an ugly period where it's just, spam cannons that seem to know more and more and more about you, but really are just trying to serve the business interests. I think that's
and it's on us as vendors in this space. So I remember talking to somebody who was at one of the early email marketing companies, and asking them like how like the market developed, because it's similar to I think what's going to happen in contact center as the contact center market gets more sophisticated. And one of their biggest regrets was customers used to ask them for this feature where basically like you would email somebody and the person could click and it would take that whole person's contact list and email everybody in the contact list. And that was like the most requested feature early days in email marketing. And they made it for customers. And immediately what happened is you send somebody an email and it spammed everybody. I think everybody remembers these days where it's just like you would get all these like list spamming emails. And it was terrible. And people stopped paying attention to email because of the features they built like that. Had that email marketing person had the foresight to say, my customer is not just the company that's paying me, but also the end user. And if I create an experience that's bad for the end user, it's going to kill this channel and drive click rates to the floor. Let's not build features that are going to do that. They would have ultimately done much better. So I think it's our responsibility as vendors in this space to protect our customers from the things they ask for. So even if they ask for something that's going to spam cannon the customers, we have to say, no, let's not build that, because that's a bad experience for the customer and result in worse outcomes in the long run.
Yeah.
Alex, I think that's such a smart distinction.
Yeah.
There's like almost like 3 different like levels of forces at play. The first is what are you as an individual company, if you're a customer and you're using AI, how are you going to do a good job with it? How do you make sure your company that's using AI isn't a spam cannon? And then you go one step kind of broader and you say, how do the companies that are creating these
Yeah.
AI capabilities, how can they make sure they put like smart guardrails on it to like protect the industry and make sure that, you know, their customers and their customers all have good experiences? And then there's this biggest force of like the market, which is you can be doing all the right things. Your tech vendor can be doing all the right things. But if everybody else in mass is not doing the right things, how does that pollute your efforts? And
Yeah.
I think we got to remember that like we're within this ecosystem and we have to control what we can control and, you know, do a good job executing where we can execute. But also the ecosystem is like this wild beast and we're kind of along for the ride in some form.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, I would love to turn over to questions. I have I would love to get closing remarks from Alex and Mark as well, but before that, we will tackle some of these questions. So if you have a question, feel free to throw it in the Q&A function, throw it in the chat, and we will get to them in order. So the first question here is from Jeff. He asked, what are you guys doing on the data training side, and what do timelines look like for rolling that out? For example, if my agents are currently scheduling calls, when is a reasonable timeline where we could train a bot on successful comms to automate it?
So these are actually all the questions are a little bit related. So I will say Regal has AI agents live with customers today. It's technically in beta, but if it's something you're interested in, just email me hello@regal.ai and we can get you set up. To the sort of what I've been saying, we have intentionally pushed customers to pick what are use cases that don't require knowledge bases, don't require heavy training. You'll be shocked at how good the AI agents are without that. Because can we do the training? Sure, we can do it today, but that's going to cost you minimum tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to really go and do that. And it's not necessary. So let's pick the use cases where it's not necessary. And all the use cases you're talking about in terms of, basic scheduling, in terms of handling things at night, in terms of qualification, AI does very well without any training. And so we can do it today, and we price in a very aggressive manner. We basically try to say whatever you're currently spending on labor, we will make sure to give you a price that is lower than that. So not only will you get this good AI experience, but you will save money on every single experience. In terms of like how training will go, there's so much fascinating stuff happening. Like particularly, I will say, call out one sort of thing that people are not super aware of, is that most AI agents today, and ours included, actually takes the voice, translates it to text, puts the text in an LLM, back to text, back to voice. That's how it works. There are a number of new LLMs that basically are voice to voice. So instead of having the training be done on text, the training is done on utterances and how you actually say words, and it's taught at utterances instead of text. So it'll actually go voice to voice LLM back to voice, which is going to be a much faster and ultimately the hope is much better experience. It doesn't work that well today, but it will work much better very soon. So the training on utterances to make sure that model doesn't go bananas when it hears uh you know like 40, like, does it know that's a number, or that doesn't know that's like related to alcohol? Like, and in the context, how does it know which one it is, right? So that sort of training is what's really going to cost enormous sums of money, and is what, OpenAI and Anthropic and, and Meta and Google are pouring money into. Because they're doing that, we as end users are not going to need to do that as much. Sure, if you're in a very deep industry like legal, there may be specific words, but that's easy to update the model with. So I don't think training is going to be as big a deal as people think, actually, for end users.
Mark, any perspective from you on sort of like the training process?
Yeah, I love this question. I'll suggest thinking about it as almost in a funnel. And the top of the funnel is the out-of-the-box LLM. And that might be what you get from Anthropic or OpenAI. And it says, ta-da, we've created the most powerful, AI conversational system on Earth. And you can ask it questions, and it's really smart because it has the entire body of the internet that it's essentially trained on. That's out of the box. You're able to then take these models and what they call fine tune them. So, 4.0 can do this, 3.5 can do this, and you can fine tune a model where you say, great, I want to feed this a bunch of data on contact center language or sales and customer service language, because I want you to basically not answer with any possible answer that a human could have on the internet, but I want you to answer within these within these bounds. So that's something that the tech company will do, right? We'll fine tune the model. And then the third layer of the funnel is prompt engineering. So writing good prompts on it. So Jeff, for your example, you could take a really well fine-tuned 4.0 model, and you could have it look at a bunch of your calls, and you could write a bunch of prompts and say, here's the main things that we need to accomplish in a call. We need to make sure that we confirm the time, we confirm the name, we confirm that there's 2 people going to be present for the appointment or whatever it may be. And you say, I want you to go through all these confirmations. And in any case where you get stuck, try to go back to the main question flow. And, and here's things, guardrails. So don't write the customer a poem. If they tell you to pretend to be a pirate, don't do that. And you can basically kind of structure a prompt this way. So Jeff, the reason I say all that is, like what Alex mentioned, there may not actually need to be much training, if any, on the customer side. It might be taking the fine-tuned model and writing smart prompts for it. And that prompt writing period, you should be able to get good stuff done in 1 to 2 weeks. We found when we're working with customers, it's a collaborative process where we say, and maybe it's different for Regal, but I'll just tell you what it is for Balto, where it's a collaborative process. We have a bunch of back and forth with customer, and we say, is this exactly what you were going for with this, in our world, QA criterion? And they go, well, actually, this one would be a yes because of some edge case. And we say, cool, and we kind of work on the prompt together. So we have about 1 to 2 weeks before it's like answering QA items and scoring them. And then, we then will run a bunch of tests on it and say, here's a bunch of calls that were really challenging. Tell us, if you think the LLM got it right. So there's this iteration phase, which, if you really want to do it justice, is probably 2 to 6 weeks after that. Just continuing to pay attention to the model, make sure that it's actually delivering the results you want. So I'd say 1 to 2 weeks, and you're like, man, we wrote some awesome prompts. It's really capturing this stuff. And then another 2 to 6 weeks after that, and you're like, it's not making, it's really capturing our edge cases. It's not making, mistakes that our humans wouldn't make.
Yeah, that's exciting. There's a question here from Charlie on when will Regal have AI agents? Alex answered, we have them now. So feel free to reach out if you'd like to learn more. A use case that Charlie suggested is having AI agents answer their calls regardless of time of day, and essentially just have a polite conversation and then do a handoff. Any thoughts on that type of use case for AI, Alex?
Yeah, highly suggest switching, any types of calls you might have with an answering service, or that you maybe put in the Philippines or India because you wanted a lower cost provider, but you still wanted a human. Those are great examples to switch to AI today. Highly repetitive, very formulaic, relatively constrained in their outcomes. Like there's only 1 or 2 possible outcomes. Those are great for AI agents today. Again, AI agents will continue to get better, but there's no need to go and try to have the AI agent do like the most complicated wedding planning, like where you don't know what the bride wants. Like that's not a good use of it today. But yeah, to reiterate sort of the piece on the prompting, basically OpenAI and Anthropic and all those providers like really have not built tools for all of this. Like a lot of what we have done is built tools on top of LLMs, and you can use, we can hook in any of the LLMs, or you can bring your own. So we don't care what the LLM is so much. But we built tools on top of that so you can decide like what is the order in which you should ask the questions. Do you have to ask certain questions before other things happen? Are there bounds where you don't want the person to go out of this? How do you make sure that the AI agents don't say things you don't want them to? What are the outcomes? How do you make sure the outcome happens? How do you to get the disposition? And the beauty of, again, doing this within a contact center system is that we automatically have, scripting and QA and, automation of like when the call is supposed to happen already there. Like what I really discourage people from doing is like some people come to us like, oh, our company's just going to go and build an AI agent and OpenAI. I go, guys, you're missing the point. It's not, could you do it once? It's, do you have the tools to repeatably create these? Do you have the QA tools to check it's working? Do you have the contact center routing and IVR to know when it's going to happen? And without all that stuff, it's useless that you now built an agent that is one agent and works okay for one use case. It's not that you wasted your time, but just make sure you understand that's never going to be the production version.
Thanks, Alex. There's a question here from JD on voice agents being allowed to be used for outbound or whether they qualify as robocalls. So obviously we at Regal have a perspective on that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's an easy answer. So now in the TCPA consent, we are obviously not lawyers, but what we suggest to people is adding. So it used to say like, you're going to receive a phone call or an SMS or a pre-recorded call. There's a new one that we suggest adding that, if you contact us, hello@regal.io, we're happy to give you the language that we suggest. Is it legally required yet that you say it's this artificial call? Unclear if it's legally required yet, but the reason we suggested is that if you've done it, then a year from now when it does become legally required, you'll have the permission on those older customers. That's all. As long as you're asking for permission for that artificial call, you'll be perfectly fine. There is also a rumor that in the same way you get on a call and in certain states you have to say this is a a recorded line, you're gonna have to have your AI say this is an AI agent. You're not going to be able to just have the AI agent pretend to be human. That hasn't happened yet, but will happen soon. Your vendor should be the one staying on top of these things. Like we, again, are not legally liable for our customers' TCPA risk, but it's our responsibility to make sure that we have the audit log and the capabilities to make sure that our customers can be TCPA compliant, can be compliant on these AI pieces. So again, if you just go straight to OpenAI, you're exposed to all this. If you go work with a vendor like, Balto or like us, like it's our responsibility to make sure that you have the right tools to not have exposure on compliance.
cool. So this has been an awesome conversation. I want to close out with just like maybe some excitement. So what you're looking forward to. So whether it's something from your own product roadmap or just something that in your personal life that like you're excited about or your capabilities of AI that you're excited about, would love to hear from both of you as we close out just something that an innovation that you're looking forward to sort of on this subject. Marc, we can start with you.
Yeah. It's funny because before you said, a specific innovation you're looking for, the thought that came to me is I'm so excited that like making product is more than ever like painting right now. Because these LLMs are so versatile. You can point them anywhere. You can point them toward helping agents, point them toward helping supervisors, point them toward helping quality managers, point them toward labeling your data and saying, please look through these 10,000 calls. Let me know which of the following events occurred, and then show me a trend of how these events are going over time. And so you can point these toward a million things, which means it is easier than ever to create a bunch of really great product for customers. If I were to point about one specific innovation, I'm excited about insights. I'm excited about the ability to, out of the box, without you having to do any configuration, without having to do any digging, you turn on Balto and it says, we have looked at your last 6 months of call recordings, and here are the biggest reasons customers calling, and look, this thing has been trending up or this thing's been trending down. That's something we just released in beta at the end of July. Super excited by it, and that's going to get much, much, much more powerful over the next few months and quarters.
Very cool. Excited to hear
did
more.
I did like a panel with one of our VCs who invests a lot in AI, and a friend of ours who he's now left, the head of go-to-market for all of OpenAI maybe a year ago. And I don't know, I came on going like it's all kind of okay. A year ago wasn't that great yet. And I remember the head of go-to-market OpenAI going, guys, like you don't understand, like it is phenomenal, because he had seen all the things internally that they were doing that we hadn't seen yet. And he was basically saying, look, the only thing that's going to hold this back is regulation. The reason I mentioned that is now we started to see how amazing it is and how fast it's improving, which is great. But what I'm also seeing is it's going much slower in enterprises, because enterprises are now not only waiting for the government regulation, but they're creating their own like red tape and AI boards. And I'm not saying it's bad, but they're being much more cautious. The people who are diving headfirst into using AI agents and AI for this and AI for that are actually in the mid-market. And so at a core, I'm very excited by that, because it means it gives these mid-market companies a new weapon, a new tool to compete with the big ones. Like it's another tool for, Kin, who's our customer, to compete with Prudential or whoever, right? It's another customer for Roman to compete with the biggest, hospital systems in the world. So the mid-market and sort of small enterprise companies that are more nimble and more willing to use these tools are going to get enormous advantage. And AI is a deflationary force, right? As those companies' costs come down, they can lower the price of their products and reach more consumers. So I think like it's going to be this opportunity where the companies that are sort of in the mid-market using it first are going to win huge market share over the next 5 years because enterprises won't be able to get out of their own way.
Awesome. Well said, Alex. And that does sound exciting. So, um, I think the biggest takeaway for me from all of this and the dialogue that we've had today is just that you don't know what you don't know. So if you'd like to learn more about, Regal's efforts with AI or Balto's, feel free to check out our websites. There will be a recording and a recap of this sent out to anybody who registered after the fact. But if there's any specific questions you have for me, for Alex, for Marc, feel free to reach out and we'll be happy to answer those offline as well. Thank you so much for taking the time to join. Thank you, Marc. Thank you, Alex. Appreciate all the insights. And we'll see you again for another webinar next month. Thank you.
Good stuff. Thank you all.